Is DOGE illegally withholding funds appropriated by Congress? This is the big question, and this is the potential constitutional crisis that is being set up in the courts right now. There's been a payments freeze on the Treasury payment system for certain amounts, I guess since like January 20 something. And there are some lawsuits now winding their way through the courts. One from the Pennsylvania governor. Apparently, the Trump administration through DOGE has like frozen a bunch of funds. Have you heard about this, David?
I know that funds are being frozen, and instantly when my brain went to the exact opposite of Biden relieving people of student loan debt. The big argument was Congress controls the purse, not the president. So then when I see this happening where funds are being turned off, I'm like, to me in my brain, like that's the same thing. So I understand the legal argument here.
Interesting. I like that parallel, David. That is very insightful. And
sometimes that's it. I'm out. See you later next week.
Yeah. So there's a few things. It's like the Trump administration is also withholding or has clawed back funds that were sent to New York City for like housing migrants, and I guess they're saying that these funds were used to house illegal immigrants in hotels in New York City. They're clawing back that. So it's setting up this crisis where and I totally understand these arguments here. It's like the role of the executive is to execute the will of Congress, to defend the United States from enemies internal and external, to execute the laws, right? To enforce the laws passed by Congress, and those laws include funding. So it is to give out the money, spend the money, run these departments that Congress has authorized. And it seems like with these, federal freezes, like the argument is, well, the executive is not doing its role, right? That's their job. It's not their job to decide what funds go out. That's up to Congress. But at the same time, I'm thinking like, well, it's only been 18 days, right? And it seems kind of crazy to me that like Pennsylvania, for instance, is suing the Trump administration now for this freeze on funding. But it appears that like the Pennsylvania departments that are getting this funding, and a lot of it's like for some environmental cleanup, that sort of thing, like fixing these wells that are like, need to be shut down or whatever. They can just go into like the Treasury system and just pull the money, right? So that's what has been stopped. Their access to these online systems to just take the money has been shut off. And it seems kind of crazy to me that that's how easy it is to get the money, right? Like, so I understand this idea that the president shouldn't just be able to shut off access to funds that Congress has appropriated, but how easy does the executive need to make it to get the funds? I mean, shouldn't we have some sort of like reimbursement process instead of just here's the money, right? Go spend it. Like, do we have any evidence that the money is being spent properly? I don't know. Like, does that make sense, David?
Yeah, I think it's the same bell went off for me. I was listening to NPR, and there was a country that depends on the USAID that money coming through, and it got turned off. And the very next day, basically, they had no money left. And I was like, but millions have been going there. Is it not being like put in a bank? Like it's like all these organizations, are they just paycheck to paycheck on this money that's coming from the government? And that's
yeah.
Like when it comes to millions and billions that's being distributed, once it leaves the Treasury, is there any due diligence on this? Right. How do they not have any left, some of these organizations? They've taken millions and millions and millions and millions and millions.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like a lot of this like drama in the news is about this freeze that has only been for a very short amount of time. And maybe it should take like 30 days to get your money. And you should have to submit some evidence of how it is being spent. And that to me seems like just feels right, like that the executive as the the Treasury under the directive of the president should be able to set some limits on access to these funds to ensure they are spent properly. It shouldn't be so easy just to get the money. Companies reimburse employees for expenses, right? Expense reimbursements. So in most companies, you have to like submit a receipt to get reimbursed for your expense. But what if your policy in your company was just like, here's a card and just spend the money and there's no that's it. That's your policy. What do you think would happen if people didn't have to justify their expenses? Well, they would just spend the money, right?